So this is a pitch pipe, guitar pitch pipe. If you unscrew this and take it apart, there'll be a brass plate that has the reeds cut in it. Um, you can get these on AliExpress. You can get them on eBay. They have another round version. This one only has 6 notes. The round version has more notes. So like in my case, when I was a kid, I had an accident, and you can type into my channel search creation. You should watch the creation video if you're new here and you're planning on sticking around, and you'll learn a little bit more about my story. Now, I don't use these 2 fingers because I can't, and you can learn more about that in creation. I tune my B string to a C. So that's my alternate tuning. That's how I get around the fact that I cut my middle 2 fingers off. Don't judge me on that unless you watch the creation video. Then you can judge me. Immediately after my father died, my mom kind of went nuts. I was 15. She kicked me out of my house, and I lived in my car. And a while later, I was in pretty bad shape. When I was around 21, I was unable to continue that lifestyle. I moved back home, and that's when I met Gamti. I met my old lady. So we've been married for a long time. We've always lived in apartments, and money hasn't been one of those things that's been easy to come by. I suffered chronic gout in both of my knees for 15 years, making it very difficult to walk. And I herniated some discs and have a spinal degenerative condition. So money has never been one of those things where it's like we've just got a surplus of money laying around. So and I raised 2 kids. So the idea of like just buying a bunch of vintage guitars was never within possibility. And the other fact is that I wasn't born talented. My growth, my ability on a guitar is minimal, and my growth moves so slowly that it cannot be charted. Now, a few years ago, it's a while back, there was a guy who had made himself, he had interjected his presence into my life. And he was a music guy, he was a guitar guy, and he asked me at one point, have you ever played flat wound strings? And I said, no, I know what they are. I played flats on a bass, but never on a guitar. And he said, well, one of the things that I work with my students, because he was a guitar teacher, he was a talented player. I always had my students try flats. So he asked for my address. He mailed me this package of flat wound strings, which I installed on this same guitar. I put the flats on the Cord 45, and I noticed on a round wound string, it's a round wire that's wound around a hexagonal core, so you get this bumpy effect on the bottom 3 strings. It's almost like a file. It's abrasive, kind of grabs when you slide. The flat wounds weren't like that. They were smooth. So it encouraged playing like glissando and sliding a little bit easier. And for some reason, I ended up coming up with, I started playing this, which works from the 1st string all the way up to the 6th string. that phrase there, learning how to play that, was the last significant hump, forward movement in my lifetime experience playing the instrument. My point being that sometimes something small like changing a set of strings or a different guitar especially a different guitar, can really influence you to do things differently, and that can lead to a significant improvement for you. So that's about it for the point of this video. You know, I know some guys who like this one dude. He was like, I got 30 guitars, and like he invited me to come. Like he lives across the country, and it was like my wife and I were supposed to drive down there and stay with him for the purpose of making music with him. And like my wife and I make music as a duo with intent. Like that's it for it. That's what we like to do. If it wasn't for our relationship being together, either one of us would be doing that. And we're not like we need to hire a lead guitar player so we can play that Motley Crue cover. You know what I mean? We do this. It's like a sacred thing between us two that we do this. And it has nothing to do with anyone else or trying to be popular or trying to impress people. Because I'm not delusional, and I realize that I'm not a talented guitar player. I'm at best a beginner rate guitar player. I mean, I wasn't born with talent. I'm not a good musician when it comes to playing the guitar. And then I have a severe handicap. And if you don't understand that, you can go on this channel and watch a video which is called Creation. I would urge you to watch the Creation video. That's the most important thing. Watch the video that's called Creation, and you'll learn. This guy is like inviting me to drive ourselves down to stay with him so he can play guitar. I didn't, and like the guy doesn't have anything. He's got nothing to show for himself. There's no music. I saw pictures. I saw a bunch of gear. He had a ton of gear, a huge, giant stack, huge amplifiers, all these pedals, 30 guitars. And like, he would bring up a guitar like he was like that Epiphone Les Paul you had is worth money. I had a Lotus Les Paul. And like just this like guitar trading, like wheeler dealer, like these guys, well, they'll like, if a guy asks me, is that Strat you're playing made in Japan? Like, you're taking a shot at me saying that. That's an insult, okay? Number one, you're saying that Strat's not made in America. Number two, it's a Squire. It's a piece of shit. It's a $50 guitar. That's what he's saying. And this motherfucker has 5 fingers. He doesn't have 2 fingers to fret. He's got 4 fingers to fret, I should have said. Perfectly healthy guy. coming at me when the video, it's not about the guitar. It's a piece of music that I shared with the guy. So there's a certain etiquette between guitar players. I guess what it comes down to is males have a tendency to try to establish dominance over other males. For, I think, like, some women, it might be easier for some women to get together and just be like, not really care about the other girl. Like, if she has a better body or a better husband or a nicer car, like, some women can just kind of get together and socially just bond without one of them trying to establish who's dominant. And I just wish it was like that for guys, because as musicians we need to work together. Like, the opposite of war is a band. Okay? You have a group of guys with a common goal that's creating something that ideally is supposed to make people gyrate. It's supposed to make people dance. It's supposed to make people smile and get off on being alive and forget the horror of what it means to be a human being. Okay? That's what being in a band is. But in order to do that, these guys need to have the dick measuring contest, size each other up. Maybe the two of them might need to get into a fist fight before they can come to the fact that they're actually friends and move past that. But this is usually what will happen in a band. There'll be two guys that just can't get along until one of them beats the other guy down, and then he becomes submissive then. But that whole thing of, like, not being able, and the Beatles, a perfect example, when they broke up, they hated each other. They were suing each other. And, like, they didn't, in a lot of ways, if you listen to the tone and the message in George Harrison's music, that song, Isn't It a Pity? While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Like, Harrison wouldn't have been able to write those songs without Lennon psychologically abusing him, and McCartney ignoring his talent. He had to be kind of pushed off into a box and ignored and have his ideas shot down by those guys in order for him to become the type of songwriter that he was. But I gotta tell you, I like the enlightened, the healed George Harrison's music, like when he was in the Wilburys, and the more uplifting music and his guitar playing, his lead guitar playing that's not so melancholic. I mean, yeah, there's beauty in melancholy. You listen to Pink Floyd, Van Gogh, this type of art where it's like a heart-achingly sad thing. That has its place and that has its worth. Of course it does. But my point is, as a guitar player, as a guy in my 50s, I'm an adult. Okay? It's very difficult for me to want to give a shit about anybody who plays guitar, because most of them, it's a dick measuring contest. They can't, even with me, they can't look and say, wait a minute, this guy is missing 2 of his fingers to fret. So if I come at him with my usual thing and give him the business and try to establish my dominance as a superior musician, I'm really going to look like a jerk, because I have 4 and he has 2. And believe me, that doesn't bring me any joy. I would much rather have my fingers back and be able to play the thing properly than the position that I'm in. But ultimately, people who collect guitars, people who monetize. Like, here's a tip, okay? If it's not your possession, you really, the only way that I feel comfortable talking about stuff like that is if somebody got a good deal on it. Like if someone's willing to tell me, hey, this is a $400 thing I found it for 28 bucks at the resale store, then I'm gonna like celebrate that and be like, oh dude, that is so awesome. I wish it would have happened to me, but it happened to you, and I'm happy for you. That type of stuff is I'm okay with celebrating that type of thing, but looking at somebody and saying that's a custom shop Gibson Les Paul that you had custom made, or that that's a Slash Snake Pit guitar, like that's the last thing that's going to impress me, is that if you spent a bunch of money on an instrument, that's the last thing that I'm going to compare about. And I have guys come at me with that attitude, like that's what it's about. If this guy telling me that Epiphone you used to have was worth some money, and I'm like, for one, I don't give a shit about money like you do. For two, it was a fucking Lotus. So, if you're a covetous type of person that rubs shekels, if you're into that my precious thing, don't do that to another guy's stable of stuff. That's never socially acceptable. That's just, and if you know me, please don't do that to me, because what I'm doing here is, in my mind, it's more like a magic trick, because before there was nothing, after there's this piece of music, and the piece of music can alter the way that I feel. It can make me feel, it can transmute energy, it can adjust my receptors. There's that thing that music can do, that until you've gone through that process and you've done it all yourself, like if you have a drum machine, you put something together and it just kind of doesn't really sound very good, and you've got a guitar track, you've got a bass track, you've got a drum track, and then you'll go and you'll put some keyboard and you'll have like a high piano and you'll do like a counter melody or some like other thing that you didn't think of, but the song brought that out of you, just out of service to the way that the verse is played. You'll come up with some little thing you can play. Maybe it's just 3 notes on the piano that are sparse, and like that right there, all of a sudden, that's like putting the cherry on top of the milkshake, the whipped cream and the milkshake. That's when it's like done. Okay, and you can go and try to keep adding to it, but it'll only get cluttered at that point. Like that's when it's done. And when you know that feeling, the difference between when it's not done, when it's just kind of and you're not encouraged by it, you're more almost discouraged by the amount of time and energy you put into this thing, and it's still not really kicking. And then that little simple thing that's a fraction of the it's not really inspired. It's a simple basic thing. It's 3 notes. It's a basic pattern. Didn't take you anything to play it. And then that's what kicks it off. Like knowing that feeling is why I do this. That's a feeling of accomplishment that I don't know how to achieve any other way. And then you share that with somebody else, and they go, "Is that Strat Japanese?" It's really an unbelievably rude thing, and talk about missing the point. Okay. So I said a lot of things in this video, and I don't want to come off like I'm making a bigger deal out of what I do. The music that I record is really basic, really simple music that's been done a million times before. You put 100 monkeys in a room with a typewriter, and they'd write this Shakespeare a dozen times before I got it right. I'm not trying to paint myself out as something special. Anybody could do what I did as long as they put in the little bit of effort. So I'm not, and I would encourage everyone to do that. I think there's a lot of guitar players who could really benefit from learning about multi-track recording. That and like slowing down, gaining down, playing clean. These are all things that I came to later in life that enriched the idea of doing this stuff infinitely. And I would only hope that through taking the time to yammer away on this thing, that I could inspire people to try some different things, and that maybe would work for them, and that could be enriching for them. That's what I hope to do here, is not so much push myself up and say, look at me, look at what I'm doing is so special, because that's not the point. I get what I'm doing is minimal. It's really, really basic stuff. And it's nothing really special about it. I get that. Okay. And I also understand how competitive and insecure most guys are, including myself. So I try to keep that stuff in check, and it's easy for me to understand. It's not easy for me to understand the attitude that I see when I'm online. People say, "Oh, everyone's a keyboard warrior, and we all think we're a big man when we're hiding behind the keyboard." But it's like, when it comes to fellow guitar players, we're all supposed to be on the same team. Have you noticed how pop, hip hop, and rap have dominated? How young kids are not listening to rock like they used to. Um, and it's kind of, I look at it like it's kind of up to us to pass that torch down and decode this and make this easier to understand, rather than covet and make this type of stuff such a secret. I like the other way around, where we just kind of spill the beans and talk about this stuff. So anyway, you guys, this is just all me running my mouth, and you could dismiss this. It's just a bunch of malarkey. So take care of yourselves. I always like to say, hug your pets, and peace.